Welcome to the Business Growth Spotlight, where we shine the light and talk with business leaders from all over the world who are here to share their insights and wisdom so we can all grow together. I'm your host, Heidi Schalk, co-founder of HLH Growth Solutions, and we help businesses scale their revenue through outside-the-box visibility strategies. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here. Make sure you stay to the end because I have a special gift for you. But without further ado, I want to talk to my guest today because he's in Texas. I'm in Florida. We're dealing with the heat wave in the summer as we're recording this here. So welcome Tom Irby with Skribe AI to the podcast. I'm so excited to talk with you.
Well, thank you, Heidi, for that great introduction. I'm thrilled to talk to you as well. And yeah, I guess we are fellow Southerners. We're probably, if you looked on the map, we're probably pretty close as far as who's further south.
Pretty close. Yeah, I don't even know who's further south. It's not.
You
can win that game if you'd like.
I kind of think you're going to win it, but I do think from a humidity standpoint, you probably have me beat a little bit there. In Austin, we're a little bit inland. So anyway, pleasure to be on the show.
It's a pleasure to have you. And either way, it's hot. That's all I have to say. It's hot. So hopefully, but you're having less of a heat wave than usual. So it's happy to hear that. But Tom, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Skribe AI, and your role within the company?
Well, I've been in the Texas market as an entrepreneur and business owner and a C-level guy for probably 40 years. I'm getting to the point where I don't even like to talk about how long it's been. That number's getting a little too big. It gives away my age, but no, I've been in Texas for a while. I've seen this part of the world really change from a business standpoint. Been in a lot of different industries, but the Skribe experience really kind of started when I owned a court reporting firm. Bought it in 2007 and sold it in 2014. That gave me a taste of what the legal space looked like, and it also gave me a little bit of taste of what an old business model looked like and how it could be changed. And so it really was the impetus and the planting of the seeds for what could be different about how you capture testimony and depositions. And that's how Skribe came about.
I love that you shared that, because you just never know where you start and where you're going to, like, where it's going to take you. Right. And I tell people on this journey all the time, and I have literally today, as we're recording, Tom, is the first day of school. So my son is going into 9th grade. Big adventure. Big jump. And then my daughter's a junior, and we're telling them, we just had a family meeting yesterday, and we're like, listen, try all the things, learn all the things you can, see what where your interests are. And you never know where that's going to lead you in the future. Don't think where you start is where you're going to finish, because there's this long evolution and journey. So for our listeners, Tom, who are unfamiliar with Skribe AI, can you share what your platform does and the problem that it's set out to solve?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. And so let me frame that up a little bit. So the business of taking depositions historically has been in conference rooms. So before COVID, it was face-to-face conference rooms. We're not talking about courtrooms. We're talking about conference rooms where there's a lawsuit, there's two parties, and they're capturing key testimony. And before COVID, like I said, they were face-to-face. And so it kind of made sense when you were face-to-face in a conference room to have a court reporter in the room with a funny machine and a videographer in the room with these big gnarly cameras and backdrops and all this fancy stuff. But when COVID came around, the business of taking depositions shifted from face-to-face to everything being virtual. And so then when you think about that shift, it became really silly to think about, I'm going to be on a Zoom call like you and I are on a call now, and all of a sudden there's another little window that pops up, and it's somebody with a funny machine that was invented in the late 1800s, and there's a videographer on another little box that came on the call specifically to push record and make whatever they make an hour. It's $100 or $150 an hour for literally pushing record. So this whole business of taking depositions changed, but the business model did not change. And so that was really kind of the genesis of Skribe. I owned a court reporting firm, and then Carl Silbach, my co-founder, is a litigating attorney. So Carl had been in hundreds of depositions. I owned a court reporting firm. We came at it from different directions. And it was about a decade ago that we started talking about this idea of, hey, what would a modern version look like? We were both convinced that it was broken and antiquated, which was the easy part. And so the hard part was like, well, if it's broken and antiquated, then what is it going to look like? And so we started that journey of trying to figure out, okay, well, what's it going to look like? And it wasn't until COVID came around that we realized that, hey, the whole technology discussion inside so many different markets, hit the fast forward button by a decade or so. Everybody kind of overnight had to figure it out. And so now you've got native technology around all these remote depositions. And by the way, about 85 of these depositions that take place annually are still remote. They didn't all go back to face to face. And so they're mostly have remained virtual. And so that's what we did. We decided let's kick these court reporters out of the room. Let's kick videographers out of the room, and let's optimize them, kind of using the technology that everybody's surrounded with to build Skribe.
Yeah. So I can tell you from personal experience, 2 examples for me is one deposition for an insurance claim was online Zoom, which was fantastic.
Yep.
I didn't have to leave my home. And the second one was literally, I'll tell you, a ticket. I got a ticket for my tag was expired. I didn't realize it was expired. So I got a ticket, and I got to go to court virtually. And they wiped it away. Great. But it was super quick, like literally 5 minutes. I was on there, in and out, and it was fantastic. So like you said, most of these kind of, court instances, obviously, except for probably the big ones, are moving virtually, which is fantastic for saving time for everybody involved, lawyers, judges, the people who are going there. So are you one of the founding fathers of this transcription? Because this is pretty much it's become much more popular, obviously, like now that with the evolution of AI, and now we can transcribe everything, and there's different platforms depending on what market you're in. Like we use Fireflies a lot, or Otter was popular at one point. I don't know, still going. So are you one of the 4 founders or founding fathers of this space for the
I've never been called the founding father before, so I'm still trying to process that. I
meant that in a full compliment.
Yeah. I know. I'm like, wow, I don't know. I kind of like that sound, So,
you can use that in your marketing now. There you go.
Yeah. So let me do a little bit of distinction on kind of what we do versus what kind of general transcription tools do, like Otter and Firefly and all of them. Those are kind of general transcription tools.
Right.
They do a wonderful job of capturing, like any sort of conversation. They'll give you the notes and all that. But when it comes to having testimony captured that then is going to be admissible in trial, there are rules you have to follow. And those are civil procedure rules that are at the state level and at the federal level. So what we do is very legal purposed. And so we ensure that whatever state we do depositions in, or we call them live events, we make sure we understand the laws, we reference the rules, so that every event is kind of buttoned up in that way, because there's a zero tolerance sort of approach on if it's admissible or not. The last thing we want to do is have an attorney with a really valuable case capture key testimony and then get to trial someday and shoot it down. So that's kind of a big distinction between what we do versus kind of the general transcription products out there.
Mm-hmm. So many companies are recording conversations, but they fail to extract the real value from them. So what's the opportunity cost of not fully utilizing that information, and how does Skribe AI address it? Or for you, lawyers?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So let me just kind of describe how we think of this. So in the transcription world or deposition world, all of our competitors, it's a very transaction oriented space. You schedule deposition, you attend it, you get delivery on some things, you pay the bill, then you go away. You don't really use those services beyond that. We're really trying to redefine what that looks like. And so this is a long-winded answer to your question. And if I don't answer it fully, keep me honest, come back to it. we think of it as a little bit different. We think that if you think in terms of before a deposition, the ability to prepare better. So what would that look like? Well, the ability to put any and all content around a case into the Skribe application before an event. The Skribe application would then give you guidance and questioning and strategy outlines before the event ever occurs. Then when you get into the live event, like we're on a Zoom call now, the Skribe application shows you the conversation as it's happening, and it's giving you insights. It's telling you, hey, you didn't ask Heidi this question, or hey, there's an inconsistency from what Heidi said here to what she said there. So you capture better testimony, so you prepare better, capture better. And then after the deposition is really when you start to think more in terms of data, so you have the testimony, not just for that one deposition, but for an entire case or an entire organization. Now, a lot of what I just walked through, Heidi, is roadmap. It's not where we are today. We're going to get to that point. But from an AI standpoint, our ability to insert AI is very specific to before the deposition, after the deposition, and giving feedback during the deposition. The event itself is precious, and the video is the official record. So it's a really good, an important distinction for litigators that happen to listen to this podcast, is that the video is the official record. And if there's ever any question about what was said, you just push play and you see it in the video. What we are focused on kind of from a technology standpoint is helping prepare better, give better questioning, and give better analysis on the back end of it. So that's how we kind of see the Skribe application and the space evolving in the next handful of years, is really being less transactional and being more of a kind of a single pane of glass for kind of all the testimony interaction.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question with when it comes, you brought up AI, and that the AI is hot right now. It's a hot topic. I think it's going to be one for a while. It's evolving extremely fast. And you saw a lot of transition with since COVID. Well, now we're 5 years since COVID. So how has AI and the rapid evolution of that evolved your business and your company?
Well, I mean, it's totally changed how we think of what a modern application would look like in this space. Mm-hmm. Everything I just walked through about kind of the platform and how to prepare better and get more in-event sort of feedback and how to analyze on the back end, none of that really would have existed in the same sort of vision or form that we think about it now. So you're right, it's evolving so fast. And in legal tech especially, you're seeing AI just kind of like a wildfire, crawling through every aspect of the space. And it's really one of the bigger challenges for any of the companies out there, whether they're in legal or not, is how do you position yourself and how do you ensure that you stay ahead of the crowd? Because, there's some folks, I've spoke to a VC firm a few months back, and, he was asking a lot of AI questions, and I asked him a few questions. I said, so, what's your impression of AI and kind of how it's going to progress and grow? And he said, well, a lot of industries, AI is just going to eat up the entire industry. Like his perception was AI is going to, he used those words, eat up a lot of the space out there. And his concern was, is your business model even going to be viable? Is AI going to do everything at some point? And I mean, I think that all industries are kind of dealing with that sort of question. And there's a settling that is taking place on what it can do and what it can't do, and kind of how the human piece of it stays important. So all that said, in the world of testimony and depositions and lawsuits, attorneys are going to get they're getting a lot of assistance, and a lot of workflows are changing because of AI, but they're still involved. They still have to be the people, the ones in the loop, the humans in the loop that ensure that everything kind of adheres to the rules. And so we really think that for our model, it's going to be a nice blend of kind of the humans in the piece of it, and then complementing it with AI kind of all around it.
Yeah, I think you brought up a really good point. There's a lot of fear around AI and what the unknown right? And what the unexpected, what can come up, or, people are going to be phased out of their jobs. And I think there is going to be some of that, but at the same time, people need that human element, that human interaction.
Right.
And that's an important piece. And I think as like, we're all evolving, all growing. When you start a business, from where you start to where you end up are two completely different places many times. And I think we just need to all step back and not go into panic and freak out mode. Yes, could be some huge dangers with the capabilities of AI, and there's some fear out there. But at the same time, we also need to know that and trust that there's a lot of human aspects that need to be still incorporated. And just keeping up with it. Like, I've talked to a lot of leaders just like you on this podcast, and they said, as long as you're learning the AI, like, don't avoid it. And I think there's a lot of companies. This was me last year. I was not just 12, 14, 16 months ago. I was like, oh, I'm going to watch and see what happens. And now we've done a lot in a short amount of time, because we realize we have to. It's definitely not something that you can just step away from, close your eyes to, and turn your back on. You definitely need to, if you're wanting to grow a business, you need to lean into it. So can you talk into, for those of our listeners who are listening, I know you're in the legal space, who is your exact ideal client, and what does it look like to work with you as far as like the journey?
The journey. Yeah. That's a great conversation. So when we first started going down this path, we were building Skribe to really capture any legal testimony. And so it was this big umbrella of like, oh, we're going to go after all legal testimony. It was like, wait a second, we really need to kind of narrow it down. So we started thinking, well, all litigation for sure. And then we're like, wait a second, narrow it down further. So what's the biggest bucket of litigation out there? Personal injury is the biggest bucket of litigation. So personal injury is what we're going after. And then we were going after the defense and the plaintiff side. And after a while, we realized, our value prop is resonating so much quicker and faster with the plaintiff side. So personal injury plaintiff side is really kind of our ideal customer profile. And even one step further than that, and it's something that we've just really refined in the last handful of weeks, is where we're finding the most success is really targeting firm owners or general partners, people that have balance sheet responsibilities inside the smaller boutique plaintiff firms are really kind of the ideal person for us, because they understand the business prop of, hey, I've got 20 attorneys here. The impact of lowering all that deposition cost by 50% across the entire organization looks like this. And even beyond that, if we can, instead of waiting 6 weeks to get a transcript, and we can schedule tomorrow and have a transcript an hour after, the velocity of settlements, the velocity of quicker case times, and kind of how many cases we can use as a firm, those are all kind of entrepreneurial business owner sort of discussions. So personal injury plaintiff firm owners is really kind of the holy grail for us right now.
Yeah. I don't know if a light bulb went off for you, those of you listening, like it did for me, but Tom just dropped a lot of gold there in many different ways. One is them learning how to niche down, right? It was all testing. You're like, we can do all this. And most of us out there can serve an umbrella, right? But it's not going to speak to everybody. So who are you speaking to? Who are you having success with? You went toward the plaintiffs. Well, first it was personal injury. You're like, this is who's resonating most of it. This is the biggest bucket that we can tap into. And then out of that bucket, who are the people that are really resonating with this and that we can serve the best? And that turned into plaintiffs. But you didn't know that from day one. There's testing there, there's conversations, there's a journey. So for those of you out there if you're in the beginning phases, you need to find your niche. It's great to help everybody, but you're going to help no one when we do that, especially in our messaging. The second piece, you said something else so good. Who you target in that niche. You're not targeting the specific lawyer. You're targeting the people that are looking at that bottom line. And how can you help them? With time and money. Time and money are the greatest, biggest assets we have. We always want to make more money. We can't get our time back, right? So how can we be more efficient to add to that bottom line? Huge takeaways in that one segment here. So I just wanted to draw attention to that because I think that was phenomenal.
Yeah, I want to inject a little bit more because I'm having flashbacks. So we founded the company in early 2022, and we did a ton of discovery work. We wanted to validate, ask questions with the people that we thought were going to be interested in what we were doing. So we had probably 230 to 250 conversations with either attorneys,
Wow.
paralegals, legal secretaries, judges, and we approached it like we're going to learn. And that became kind of this journey of narrowing kind of who your ideal customer profile was. Because at first you think, oh, I'm going to conquer the world, I'm going to go after all these, you're going to boil the ocean, and you realize that you've got to keep refining it. And when you think you've refined it, refine it more, and then it's prove it out and prove it out and prove it out, and really strive for that product market fit. So we did all that discovery early on, which I think was one of the most important things we did as a young company. Is we didn't rush to the market. We tried to learn before we built it, and then mid 2023 is whenever we launched it, and with the benefit of all that understanding.
Yeah, it was just so much goodness there. And I just wanted to bring light to it. And thank you for going deeper on that. I'd like to turn to visibility and marketing a little bit, Tom, because you've been in business a few years now. You've done the testing. Market research is a huge piece of it. We really haven't touched on that a lot. So thank you for bringing that. You didn't have 2 conversations or 3 conversations. You had 230 to 250 conversations. And I think that's a big key too. We need to constantly be having those conversations. And like you said, once you think you have found it, refine it again. And I think there's probably going to be more as you're evolving and growing, there's going to be more refinement, and there's also can be expansion. So there's not just that you're always going to be refining it downward. You can also refine it outward, because once you have success in a niche, now you're like, okay, we're really serving these people really well. How can we expand a little bit outside of that circle? And you're kind of like growing that circle. So go ahead. Did you have something?
No, just clearing my throat.
So what's some of your, like in your growth over the last few years since 2022, what have been some of your biggest challenges, whether it's 1 or 2, and how did you overcome them?
That's such a great question. And I think if we would have had this conversation a year ago, I would have answered it one way, and 2 years ago, I would have answered it a different way. If I'm thinking early on, the biggest challenge probably would have been what we just walked through, and that was trying to narrow down the focus of what you're doing to a more simple version of kind of your grand vision. Because when you're brainstorming about what a company is going to do, it's easy to kind of think on scale. Well, you don't come to market at scale, and so you have to kind of do this reverse engineering of, okay, scale, I have a vision what scale could look like with this business model and this opportunity. Well, what's the first step in that? The analogy I always like to use, it's kind of like, you're going to build a 3,000 square foot house, and it's going to be beautiful, and it's going to have all this, and it's going to have all that. But tell me what the entry looks like. Like figure out, how do you walk up to the house, and what's the entry, and build that out. And so I think one of the biggest challenges early on was getting discipline and religion about that. I'd also say that, for us, the big challenge is we're taking an old industry, legal, and kind of legal's been notoriously slow to adopt technology. COVID was so harmful in so many ways, but from a technology standpoint, it really provided a fast forward on a lot of conversations. So, finding early adopters in the legal market is not the easiest thing to do. So we've had to figure out, and you mentioned AI earlier and kind of the fear around it. When we started this conversation a few years ago and made reference to AI, people were scared to death of AI. And then over time, people have become more and more aware of, like, it's not the monster. It's really something to embrace. Okay, how do I embrace it? So I think early on, trying to navigate the existing inertia, the existing clients, and figuring out how to navigate this concept of something new in an old market, and knowing that not everybody we talk to is going to be a good fit.
Yeah,
like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. And on some of these people that aren't really early adopters and a good fit right now, instead of the sales cycle looking like this, the sales cycle looks like this. Because there are people we spoke to 2 years ago that weren't quite ready that are now coming on board. And so it kind of depends on getting clarity about, okay, the early adopter, what are the characteristics? What is the value prop? And making sure you're okay with walking away from people and just staying in touch and cultivating those things over time. So I would say those are the biggest things was kind of the early discipline around a startup and the focus associated with it. And I think the other was kind of the early adopters really trying to figure out how do we message and stay disciplined about going after those early adopters.
Yeah, you brought up a really good point on the journey of the sales cycle, right?
Yeah.
Some people will be ready to jump in. That's usually a small percentage that are going to be yes right out of the gate. Some of them need a little more nurturing and follow up, right? The fortunes in the follow up. And then some of those people, which is a larger group of them, it's going to be a longer term because it may not, no doesn't always mean no. It could mean not right now, right? It just could be like, not yet. I'm not yet ready. And people typically tell you like, I'm interested. It's a no right now, but it's not a no forever. Reach out to me here. Let's stay connected. And it's always important to be building those relationships. And I hear that a lot from everybody we've spoken to on this podcast, that relationships matter, networking matters, keeping that communication open. And even if that person doesn't end up becoming necessarily a client, that door can be open for them who they know, right? And that expansion can happen there. So we never know where that's going to come from. Go ahead.
I want to add one more thing. It made me think about it. The other thing I don't think we fully understood on the front end of our journey here was the importance of education in what we do, because it's something new, it's something different. And so it wasn't the status quo. It was something, that a lot of attorneys had never even thought about. So having thought leadership around AI, having thought leadership around what modernizing the capture of testimony looks like, getting it out there via podcasts and webinars and content and and posting, on social platforms. Early on, I don't think we really understood how important that piece of it is. But as we've kind of gone down this path in our go-to-market momentum and what that looks like, that's a big piece of it.
Yeah. So you just mentioned podcasts, like you're getting out there, sharing the message. You're also social media, obviously. What are some things visibility wise? How are you getting in front of these people? How are you standing out? Like what, maybe some things that have worked and then maybe some things that haven't worked. You're like, we tried that, just didn't seem to work for us at the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a lot of the traditional things that everybody's probably considered. And it's always, in this conversation, I always frame it, it's like a recipe. It's not like one. There's no silver bullet. So we do a little bit of everything. And what we found that works from the digital side, the inbound efforts, and I'd say Meta and Google ads are probably kind of the mainstay there. Sometimes it's very frustrating because it's hit or miss. You think you figured it out. Just when you think you figured it out, you haven't figured it out.
They change it up on you, right?
It drives you nuts. But they have to do that, I guess. And the other is, we've got kind of, a lot of old school outreach, some cold email. We go to some conferences, very selective on the conference side. We've kind of on the ideal customer profile, we figured out pretty early that, hey, we can't go to these legal conferences that have all attorneys. We need to go to the ones that are personal injury plaintiff attorneys. And so it's been kind of this evolving of like, oh, okay, the shows that make sense for us look like this. And then, like I said, the thought leadership is a big deal. As far as things that haven't worked, I'd have to say on the digital side, there's always this, when you think you've got the messaging and the conversions looking really good, and you think, well, I'm just going to throttle up that spend. It doesn't always throttle up in the same way. And so I think that's been one of the biggest lessons is it's not that easy on the digital side to go, oh, okay, I've got a winning formula going right now at this spend and this messaging. I'm just going to double or triple, and it's going to on the bottom side of the funnel, it's just going to automatically do that. It doesn't always work that way. And so having patience and persistence there, I think, has been one of the biggest lessons.
So good. So what's next for Skribe AI? Like what are your big goals for the next 12 months?
Well, for the next 12 months, I would say that, so we've we think of this as kind of phase one that we're in currently. And so phase one is really proving out the model. And like I talked about earlier, that means optimized to virtual platforms and virtual depositions, boot some overhead out of the events, drive costs down, insert kind of a modern app and jumpstart and put velocity into legal workflows. That's phase one, prove it out and continue to build that out further. That ideal customer profile is SMB, smaller boutique firms. The next step for us is really kind of what I mentioned earlier about this platform concept. We like to call it a testimony intelligence platform. And so what that looks like is kind of what I mentioned as well. That is really thinking in terms of how do we do more on the front before a deposition? How do we enhance the capture even further? And how do we on the back end start evolving to a bigger data play? Those are kind of where we're headed from a roadmap standpoint. And we've also we're planning a bigger raise probably in the middle part of next year. So between now and then, it's really kind of the vision and the technology roadmap and really kind of keep proving out the concept. And then I think a year from now, we really start going more up market. We start to look at bigger organizations and we start to look a little bit more favorable to enterprise conversations than we do kind of at our startup phase. So phase one and then phase two is really kind of what it looks like for us in the next 12 or 24 months out.
Very nice. So if I could give you a magic wand, Tom, and you could wave it over one issue, one challenge you're having right now that could hold you back possibly from that timeline of your goals or achieving those goals, what would it be and why?
Well, first of all, I'm going to look for the magic wand. I expect you to send it to me because I really want it. I don't want to just talk about it. I want it. It would have to be around rules. And this is probably not interesting to most people listening, but it's kind of at the core of this space is the rules that are written in this space around the capture of testimony were written in the early to mid 90s. And so we're talking 30, 40-year-old rules that never envisioned technology, the internet being kind of what it is, COVID and remote depositions and AI. And so the whole landscape of what is possible was never envisioned with these rules. So these rules are very antiquated and strongly need modernization. So that's where that's where the magic wand is going to get waved.
Perfect. And yeah, things evolve, right? We've seen the evolution of just AI in the past year and a half. And since the 90s, things have evolved. And like you said, things need to be updated in order to keep up with the evolution in the other areas.
Yeah. So, all the technologies, it obviously is where these rules never really thought or envisioned where this is going. The other thing that I haven't mentioned to you, but in this space, there's an extreme shortage of court reporters. So there's a 35 to 40% shortage of court reporters. The number of schools that educate court reporters is going away and declining. The number of kids that grow up and say, hey, when I grow up, I want to be a court reporter. Those conversations don't happen. I don't know if they happen with your kids and their friends, but you don't hear that reference anymore. So as a profession, there's a decline and I don't know what the average age is, but there's a lot of them that are aging out. And so there's a natural gap associated with the supply and demand. And so all of that combined to say that, it's a change in space. And I mean, we feel like we're right in the middle of something really special that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think maybe if you make a really good point. I've never heard my kids even bring that up. Maybe if there were more games around things happening in court and, and all the different roles, then that would be more in the forefront because that's where the kids are these days. My daughter's not into it, but my son is into gaming, and things like that. So they are learning, and also TikTok. So whatever they're seeing online is kind of where they start branching out and feeling their, getting interest in. And unfortunately, there's not enough out there on any of the, college isn't for everybody. So for some people, it's like, some of these trades are, they could be highly successful. These kids nowadays could be highly successful going into a trade where when I was going to college, trades were good. we needed to go to college and figure out how we we're going to enter the corporate world. And I think it's kind of flip-flopping, you know.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a practical side. What I was going to mention was, everybody has seen technology make big changes in everything we do, right? I mean, if you think in terms of, kind of what your phone does currently, if you think about, how frequently you use Uber or Airbnb, how often you stream videos, like if you back up 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, it looks totally different from a technology standpoint than what it does today. Same thing's happening kind of across the space that I'm representing today. And we're just in the early stages of it. We kind of liken it to, early on, how Netflix, they were competing with Blockbuster not everybody remembers Blockbuster, but they were trying to, they're trying to figure out, well, how do we navigate this whole thing? Not everybody wanted streaming. It didn't make sense. Everybody wanted to go in the store, pick up a video and then return to the store. And it was kind of like, how do you kind of transition to all that? That's kind of what we're going through here.
Yeah.
I think there's no question in our mind that this transition is happening. The question is how long it's going to take.
Right.
We think it's going to be pretty quick. Whereas if you talk to a lot of our competitors, the legacy old court reporting firms, they think it's going to be a little bit longer.
Blockbuster's a great analogy to bring up and talk into. And for those of you that don't know what happened, research it, because, I don't know if Netflix went to them for a partnership and they said no, they wanted to stay with what they were doing. And they went out of business. Obviously, Blockbuster's no longer around. They were the biggest in the biz. So yeah, it's a good analogy. Like, you need to lean in. So if you're not leaning into AI or you're dabbling in it, it's time to go, because it's time to move forward, because it's not going away. You don't want to be the Blockbuster of the times.
There's times where I don't even use the Blockbuster analogy because it seems to be overused.
Oh, is it overused? I haven't heard it much. So whenever I hear it, I'm like, oh, that's so intriguing to me.
I love the Uber one though. That most people don't really use taxis anymore. If you've used taxis and you use Uber, you're not going to go back to taxi. No. The experience is so much different. It's so much better.
And I'm thinking about what you just said. In Florida, we didn't have a lot of taxis. Taxis were very, I knew when I went to New York, you're taking a taxi. In Florida, right. You never took a taxi. You just drove. There was no option of calling a taxi and having them pick you up. We have them, yes, but they weren't readily available. Now it's just Uber. It's not even a thought.
Same thing in Texas.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't, I think if you were downtown or at the airport, that's the only place you really kind of saw taxis, but it wasn't on the scale of a major city.
Right.
It was, right. You pretty much drove everywhere. But now it's you don't think twice about using Uber. To the contrary, it's well, we're going to go to a concert downtown. God, we really want to mess with the parking. Let's have somebody pick us up. Pick us up and bring us back, and it's so convenient.
Yeah, and they can drop you off at multiple places. It's you could just take a tour of the city in the Uber. So I want to keep you, and I want to keep respect of your time, Tom, but I have 2 more questions for you. One, I'm going to do this one, which I don't ask. I haven't really asked this question before because some people talk into it or we just don't talk about it. But since you've been in business now for, I think I'm going 3 years, correct? Since 2022, I'm curious about your team building. What is your process and how have you been doing as far as scaling and building teams? Because we're building now and it's a little nerve-wracking going, okay, I know I'm hiring somebody this week, probably a little before I'm ready, but I know that it's going to be the best decision, but there's nerves around that. So can you talk into that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk more kind of around a growth model. Our goal is not really to be a lifestyle business, but to be a growth business. And so that statement implies that profitability is not necessarily the main priority early on. And so, fundraising and having enough money to kind of build at the rate you want to build has been what we've done. Now we've had times where we were a little heavy, had to trim back, but for the most part, we've been very, cash runway and how we're fundraising, how revenue is scaling and growing. that all dictates kind of what we build out on the operation side. I'm using my hands because I've got this big monster spreadsheet, and that's kind of what it looks like.
For those of you watching us on YouTube, you can see it. If you're listening to us on a podcast, hop on a YouTube so you can see it.
Yeah. So, but it's really kind of the discipline around financial modeling, I think, is kind of where my head would go. That drives kind of what you hire, because you really have to understand, what you're building, the economics of it, kind of the unit economics of it, what you're going to convert on the marketing side, what your salespeople are going to convert. How does that all roll into lead gen, what it converts at? All of that data is super important to figure out, okay, I can afford, or I need to add somebody at this spot, and that spot. And so it's been very methodical, very deliberate.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. So my last question for you before we wrap, and then I'm going to ask you to share how people can connect with you, learn more about you. If we could bring you back in a year, you said last year your answer would be different than the year before. If we could bring you back in a year from now and revisit this conversation, what does success look like for you in Skribe?
Well, I think success would look like a Series A, so a very successful institutional round. It would look like a scaling up of the sales team, the marketing team, the dev team. So we would be throttling up kind of on the growth side, as well as kind of the feature side. And I think we would also have early stage going up market that I mentioned earlier, the whole targeting of enterprise, and really starting to think in terms of, what about nationwide insurance? What about Allstate? What about Walmart? What about organizations like that really want to do this cheaper, faster, and have data on the back end and have AI give them advantages that they've never experienced before towards faster settlements, quicker case cycle times, and introducing velocity on a lot of different levels. I think that's what it's going to look like for us in about a year.
Perfect. So how can our listeners reach out to you? How can they learn more about Skribe?
Well, they can jump on the website, and Skribe is spelled skribe.ai. So you can jump on the website. More than happy to take either email tom@skribe.ai. You can look at my LinkedIn profile and ping me there, or drop me an email. Either way, love to chat, and always interested in talking to people that are interested in business, and glad to share in whatever way I can.
Perfect. So if you're watching us on YouTube, and you're watching Tom and I, thank you. We're grateful you're here. Thank you for being here with us. Drop a comment below. Let them know that you've been listening and you've been watching. And there's a button on our YouTube. It says subscribe. We'd love it if you'd subscribe and click on that. That allows us to ping you when we have more amazing guests like Tom on the show. If you know of anyone who would benefit from Skribe and learning more about Tom and Skribe, then please share this episode with them. We'd be ever so grateful. Our goal for this podcast is to help others grow. There's a huge percentage of businesses that fail within the first 5 years. We are looking to switch those numbers and flip those numbers. And our guests are here helping us on our mission to do that. So you sharing is also helping us on our mission to do that. So please share this episode. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, any of the other places, and you can see those stars and you can leave a review, please do. Preferably hit the 5 stars. That allows the platform, and leave a review. That allows me to see it. And maybe we'll start doing some shout outs here. But that allows the platform to share this podcast and our guests like Tom today with more people in supporting our mission on helping others grow, and helping them grow their business in the legal space like Tom can do. We will have all of Tom's information. Go to skribe.ai, skribe.ai. Also check out Tom on LinkedIn and go email him, connect with him. He's pretty awesome, as you've heard here. And we have all of his information, his bio and everything, all the good stuff in the show notes. I promised y'all a gift, so here it is. Tom shared with us how they are staying visible, how they're getting out there. If you feel like you've been doing all the things and you're trying to get out there and grow your business, and you're doing the things that you feel you should be doing to be visible and stand out from the crowd, but you're feeling like you're not getting the traction that you want, then go ahead and download our Spotlight to Scale blueprint. You can go to spotlighttoscale.com/blueprint and grab it. It's free. It's yours. Tom, before we wrap up and I let you go, is there anything that you'd like to share or anything that you'd like to just say last minute that I didn't get to touch on or I didn't get to ask you today?
Well, I mean, shout out to you and how well you managed the call and the podcast. Just like hanging out, there's no big deal. It was just kind of, let's just chat about it. And you did a great job. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to 12 months out having another conversation so we can go, hey, remember what you said a year ago? Tell me where it's at now. And that'd be a lot of fun.
I would love that. It'd be so much fun. It's been such a pleasure talking with you, Tom. It's been such a joy. Thank you for this off the cuff kind of flowing conversation and sharing your wisdom and your expertise with us. I'm excited to see where you all are in the next 12 months. And again, for those of you listening, send a shout out to Tom, go connect with him, go check out Skribe AI with a K. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Business Growth Spotlights.